Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Metaphysical podcast with Kellie and Gail. This is episode 35,
Yay.
and it has been an interesting week to say the least already, and it's only Wednesday.
Yeah. I think the energies of May 1st with the new moon and all of the stuff that's coming here together has really knocked a lot of people off center, and then you've got things that just keep happening and keep hitting the news, and people are going, what next? And we have gotten to that point, I think, as humanity, at least in this country, where people are no longer arguing or fighting about the news. People, at least that I've been around or talked to, are just like, great, what next? Come on, get it all out now. Let's just do this.
You know, we were talking about this a little bit last week that I was taking my first vacation in a really long time, and I was taking the whole week off, and I was going to go somewhere. Well, I made it for 24 hours where I went, and then I had a severe allergic reaction to the chemicals that they use to clean the room and got into kind of a nice discussion with the hotel saying, I can't stay here unless you want to pay to take me to the emergency room because I'm going to go into anaphylactic shock if I have to stay in that room because my chest was already tight, my throat
Mm,
was already weird, my eyes were watering like crazy. And they're like, you have COVID. I'm like, I was fine before I got here.
right.
I don't have COVID and I've worn a mask everywhere I've gone in your establishment. So, it's just interesting that, you plan. And I was so excited to go on this trip and I was so excited to do it. And, sometimes what we think we need is not what we actually need at all. Like I thought that was going to be the perfect trip for me. And instead, so I would think I was gone for 24 hours. I came home. Yesterday, I was a little out of it. And then today, I created, I don't know, some of the most powerful artwork that I've created in a really long time. So maybe that was the plan all along was to get me away for me to see what's really important to me and what I really want to focus on. And maybe it's not the things I thought it was. Maybe it's a whole
Right.
different direction.
I think you're probably onto something there. I think a lot of times we do that though.
Mhm.
When you want to get away, and I for years and years and years and years, even when I lived in California, I would go to the beaches in Texas.
Mhm.
I grew up there. That was my comfort zone. That's where I knew everybody. That was my whole life. And the last time I went back, it's like, huh, this isn't where I need to be at all. And I left early. But sometimes we do that. We go back to what we think would make us happy. We go back to what we think we would enjoy. Yes, Padre Island. Somebody just wrote that in the comments. Um, and it's not really, we've grown past that. The
Mhm.
things that used to make us happy and were so comforting are no longer that comforting, and they don't really make us happy. So I think sometimes we need to do that just to realize that we're not the person that we used to be.
And it's really funny because, like, I didn't get mad or anything about it. I was a little sad. I'm like, I can't stay here. And then I had a discussion with this lady behind the desk, and she's like, well, you need to stay 2 more hours for a manager to come. She's like, go up and wait in the room. I'm like, I just told you that the room is making me sick. And so I think I made it 15 more minutes and I just packed all my stuff and I went down. I said, I know you asked me to wait till 11. I can't wait till 11 because I'm having trouble breathing and that's not a good
Right.
sign. And so it's just, and I said, and I've already taken Benadryl and I've already done all the things that I need to do. I said, I can't stay here. Charge me, don't charge me. I just need to check out and I need to go home.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting because I woke up well, I didn't sleep at all. Like, we won't even get into they said on their website, they said their beds are the most comfortable. They're sleeping on a rock. Um, but it was really interesting because I woke up hearing myself say, I want to go home. But the
Wow.
interesting thing is like, what home am I going to?
Right.
In which dimension do I want to go home? I'm really going out there because I'm still, still a little out of it. But it's just really interesting to me. And like I've been flooded with messages for the last, I don't know. Like, as soon as I clocked out of work on Friday, the messages started coming nonstop. And they just like amped it up every day. And it's just been really interesting.
Yeah, I kind of expected that to happen for you because, they usually just leave you alone when you're at work. And I figured, I wonder what's going to happen when they know she's not at work. So I kind of expected that. But even, my life has, I didn't go anywhere. I haven't really done much. And I'm getting messages too. And when I spoke to someone else earlier today, um, people who don't even usually get messages at all are
Mhm.
receiving messages. So I think that's kind of more evidence that humanity as a whole is waking up. Um, hopefully that continues. Apparently, we need more people awake in this country right now, but I think that's what it's all about. It's about helping people wake up, helping people determine the signs, interpret the signs, and always give people some leeway. If you've got someone coming into your sphere
Mhm.
and they're kind of questioning things, in my opinion anyway, I think it helps them more to let them work through it, to talk through it, and then realize, look back and see the light bulb go on. I love that with people. But it's like if you were supposed to have stayed,
Mhm.
you would have had to have stayed. If it was not the right thing, they wouldn't have refunded that second night. They wouldn't have canceled it. So always look at it that way, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, even though you cut it short, you still got a lot out of that trip.
Yeah. The interesting thing, and I don't know how messages are for other people, two things. A friend of mine says when I'm at work, there's a closed sign for everybody on the other side. And
Yep.
so it's been open now for like multiple days, so they don't know.
Right.
I'm not usually this available for this long a period of time.
Right.
Hi, everybody who's watching us. We appreciate you being here. And the second thing is the most fascinating part to me is I'm not getting information about like where we are as humanity now. I'm getting messages from ancient texts and civilizations to unlock something for humanity going forward,
Right.
which is fascinating to me.
It is. And I think at this point, we're getting directions from maybe a higher source
Mhm.
where it's not about, you know, humanity and what's going on and where we are and where we need to be. A lot of people are kind of rising above that and getting marching orders from a higher source. um, Interesting how many people are having past life recollections where they were teachers or monks or a preacher or something along that line right now. It seems like so many people are remembering that kind of stuff.
Because it's imperative, because unless we remember what we did in the past, we're going to recreate it in our present and our future. And that's not the direction that we're intended to go as a
Right.
humanity.
Yeah. I think we have missed this opportunity in the
Multiple
past.
times.
Yeah. And this time they're like, you are not doing this again. No, 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 no. We're doing this now. And they're quite insistent. And it's funny to me in a lot of ways, just because things that don't phase me a bit freak other people out. And I have people coming to me, well, this, and this happened. And I'm like, okay, and what do you want? Go with it. If they're scaring you, tell them to back off. I can do that. Yes, yes, you can. But it's happening more and more and more often. And it's fun for me to sit back and watch.
And I really have appreciated you the last couple days. Well, I've appreciated all my friends that I've talked to in the last couple days because sometimes I don't know if any of our viewers, I know one of the people watching besides me who've had significant allergic reactions. It can be really scary.
Mhm.
And you sometimes kind of get a little foggy and you especially when you have to take Benadryl to kind of stop
Yeah,
it. Because I really didn't want to have to go the route of an EpiPen and then steroids. So, I stopped it as soon as I possibly could. And it's just really interesting when these events happen because it's like when and this is going to sound really strange, but sometimes when I'm meant to move to the next level, sometimes I have to go through physical stuff so they can prepare my body to take in the new frequency, and I have a feeling this was the fastest way they could do that
probably,
because
yeah.
I slowed down enough for them to get the 2 to match up.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Um, I had an experience not that long ago where I knew I was out journeying during the night. I knew it. I always know. And I woke up at my normal time and I could not move. Could not move. I've never had anything like sleep paralysis before. And I said,
Because you
"What are
weren't
you
doing
doing?"
your body.
Yeah. And they said, "Hang on one moment, please." And I dropped back in. And it's like I nearly bounced off the bed. And then I was fine. I'm like, really? If you're going to send me back, do it all at once, not in pieces. I felt like part of me was missing. And it was the freakiest sensation. That was just really, I was like, whoa, what is going on? And they laughed at me like they usually do when that kind of stuff happened.
So
But I think
I'm gonna encourage our viewers because we have quite a few people watching
mhm,
us right now. If you have questions or directions or things you want us to talk about, please put it in the comment section. We would love to make sure that we get all your questions answered and talk
yep.
about the things that you guys want to talk about. But as you've learned that Kelly and I can just talk about anything for 45 minutes, whether people are watching or not.
Exactly. Yep. But no, I was going to say that I think that's why you and I are in such a wonderful position to help other people because we've kind of been there and been through it and done that. And I've seen the worst and I've seen the best, and you pretty much have too. So that's why we're here, and that's why the show exists. So I also want to encourage you guys if you're watching to make comments, ask questions because it's extraordinary times that we're living in right now. Truly, truly is.
And although sometimes we can see your name depending on how you sign on, we've chosen not to say anyone's name in case, you don't want people to know that that's your question because I've had that for some people. Like, I don't want anyone to know it's me. So if you ask a question, we're not going to say who it's from. We're just going to read the question so you can have complete anonymity.
Yep.
Because I think sometimes that frees funny you're talking about that today. I got a very sharp earache today, just out of the blue, no other symptoms of being sick. What up with
Yep.
that? So that's a comment from one of our people. And I've been hearing the high pitched sounds again, which to me, they always play those right before I'm going to get downloads of information. So if you're getting an earache, is it the right side or the left side? Just out of curiosity, viewer, because each side needs something different. But basically, if you're getting an earache, there's pressure. So you're either blocking something from going out or from coming in.
That happens to me frequently. I hear the high pitch, but
Mhm.
I usually get a sharp, like somebody's stuck an ice pick in the side of my head right before I get downloads too.
Mhm.
And always at the worst possible time. Always. And they like to mess with me. They have a very wicked sense of humor sometimes.
So the person that said it's lots of ear ringing today was left. Now it's right. And I think sometimes when you're starting to become more open, and I don't think we've talked about this a lot, it can change from side to side. They're trying to see which side you are more receptive to. So they're going to move back and forth, which feels really weird when they do that because it's like you have your own internal stereo going on, but you will have a predominant side that you're going to get messages from. Mostly mine come in from the right side.
Yeah,
Once
mostly
in a
mine come from
while, I'll
left.
get
Yeah,
one from the left, but
yeah. It's interesting that when I was a kid, I would always get it from the right. These days, I always get it from the left,
mhm.
but it does change. And the thing that a lot of people experience too is kind of feeling off balance, like your equilibrium is off. That's normal, really. If they're trying to communicate with you, if they're trying to get you to open up enough so where you can hear them, they'll put you off balance for a while.
And I think it's also important to note that it depends who's coming in and giving you messages because it still may switch from side to
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
Um, so it's just really interesting. And somebody's hearing subtle chanting all day today, too.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah,
soundtrack of our lives.
yes, yes. Usually mine is Native American type chanting.
Mhm.
Lately, it's been more Buddhist, Hindu type sounding.
You're welcome. It's because I'm
Thank
making
you. Yeah, I know that you did that. Uh, but, that changes too, what the sounds you hear.
And then this next question, is it better to sit still in silence or walking with or without music? I think that's just a personal preference.
Mhm.
Sometimes people prefer music as a distraction so that you can really tune in. And I know for myself, there's times I prefer music when I'm creating mandalas, and there's times where I need to be silent when I'm creating mandalas. So it's learning for you, depending on what situation you're in, what's going to work best for you.
It also, once you start playing around with it,
Mhm.
you'll find that different guides, different deities, different angels, whoever you're working with, they will respond better to different things. So I have one guide, I can hear him coming because I hear the drums. There's another guide who comes in humming, and I can be outside. I was this morning working in the garden. All of a sudden, there's somebody humming in my ear. I'm like, thank you. Okay.
All right,
But
so our commercial break today is from Ashtar from the Galactic Federation of the Light. Because I love when Ashtar comes in because he always says, "This is Ashtar of the Galactic Federation of the Light." Like, I know who you are, Ashtar. You don't have
yeah,
to announce the whole thing.
we're acquainted. Thanks. Yeah.
Anyways, he just wants us to know that he's really grateful that this is the direction that we're taking today because they're trying to communicate with so many people. And the fact that we're talking about what communication can look like, what it can feel like, not to be alarmed by it, will help them to reach the people that they need to reach.
Yes, absolutely. And really, that's the important thing right now is so many people get so easily frightened by things they don't mean to frighten you.
Mhm,
Really, they're trying to work with you. And sometimes people hear ringing bells,
mhm.
like chimes, like bells going off. And I've had that so often lately. It's like, can you pick a different bell? Perhaps a different sound, a different tone. Um, but that's what starts happening.
Mhm,
Once you start connecting with whatever deity you're connecting with, you're going to hear them more and more and more. And it's kind of like in the beginning, they're testing you. Okay, do you hear me now? That old cell phone commercial. Can you hear me now? And that's kind of the way they play with you. And when
mhm,
you haven't worked with one for a long time, sometimes it's necessary to reestablish
mhm,
that communication method that you used to use for this one. And sometimes they'll change it. They have preferences too.
mhm.
Just like, we have different preferences, so do they. So don't be surprised if you're going along and all of a sudden there's a difference. I kind of like that myself, but a lot of people don't because any change brings on fear.
I don't know, the sounds don't bother me as much. It's when I'm going to bed at night and they start calling my name. Like, I know I'm alone in my house, and yet
Mhm.
I hear my name from male voices, from female voices,
Yeah,
depending on who it is. And then after a while, then they'll start and come and stand next to me. I'm like, I am trying to sleep.
yeah,
You may
yeah,
not need sleep in your realm, and
yeah,
I really need it on this realm.
yeah, yeah. I've had, an amazing number of ghost animals lately,
Mhm,
and one particular dog was, like, pawing my face all night, and, I can look and I can see this is a ghost dog. Why do you have the enough energy to beat me up all night long? But that happens too.
mhm,
Sometimes deities, guides will manifest
mhm.
as a much loved animal if you were so inclined, or something that you really appreciated. I often smell coconut, like Hawaii coconut smells. And that's because they're trying to put your mind at ease before they start berating you with messages.
So the 2 comments, that's the freaky stuff when I hear my name. Yeah, that can be really unnerving. And then the other comment is the sounds and noises don't bother me. It's when it suddenly gets quiet in my head. It's a little concerning to be all quiet suddenly.
Yeah.
And then you start to question, well, what did I do? Why aren't they here? Why aren't they talking to me? What's going on? I was getting so many messages because sometimes we need that downtime in
Yeah.
order to move to the next level, just like kinda I'm going through right now.
Yeah. We need to sometimes sit and let everything integrate
Mhm,
because otherwise we get overwhelmed. The one thing that I would tell people, if all of a sudden it's quiet and they were talking to you, have you recently told them to go away for a while? Have you recently said, "Hey, I need to sleep, leave me alone?" Because they will do that too.
mhm.
I have had a guide that will he'll come and he'll, like, knock on my bedside table in the middle of the night. How about now? How about now? How about now? I'm like, or I will ask, where did you go? Why are you not here? You told me to leave you alone. And, so that kind of stuff happens too.
Mhm. Exactly, I just assume it's spirit's way of telling me I need a day off.
Yeah.
Yes, because we all do need a day off.
Yeah.
Especially, we do our work, and sometimes the work can drain us in ways that we're not even aware of, but our spirit team knows, and sometimes they'll give us those respite days.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they'll make you take a nap. I
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many days I've been so focused on working on whatever I'm working on, and all of a sudden, it's like somebody goes, "Sleep," and I'm out for half an hour. But I was laughing about that until I was talking with a friend, and that's happening to me too. So anything that you're going through, just figure you're not the only one going through it.
Mm.
There's definitely more than you. So,
Well, there's definitely something going on yesterday because I never nap, and I was out cold for a good hour.
yeah.
So,
I usually feel 2 fingers on my temple too. They're like, "Sleep." "Fine, can I lay down first?" It is a very interesting time though, and as you continue working with the same guides, I
mhm,
do a lot of work with angels. When you work with the same ones over and over and over, you realize, you get to learn their little nuances,
mhm.
their little ticks, things that they will do differently than anyone else does. And to me, that's very comforting.
Mhm.
But some people find that unsettling. You can't expect when every person is different. You can't expect every angel, every guide, every god, every god. You can't expect them all to be the same because they're not.
So, our second commercial interlude today is from Kuan Yin, and the importance of having compassion for fellow human beings, and more importantly, having compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
Because that is what we really need right now. And we're all running a little short on this. This pandemic has taken its toll on everyone in so many different ways, and compassion is starting to wax and wane. And she wants to be very clear that in order to move forward, we need to continue to have compassion and to take a breath. Like if you notice you're getting stressed out, like I looking back over my last couple weeks of work, I knew I was burnt out. I knew. And like I looked at back at how I responded to things, which is not normally how I respond to things. And so when you start to notice that you're more on edge or you're more stressed, it's she really wants you to take a look at yourself and having compassion and being
Yeah.
kind and gentle to yourself because it is so important right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a message that I hope everybody hears. Um, Compassion looks like different things to different people too. Just like, we try to find things that are better feeling, or things that used to make us happy and we used to enjoy. When you're moving through such a chaotic time as we are right now, um, eh, sometimes compassion is just letting the guy at the gas station vent. Sometimes compassion is, you know what, I really don't want to go to lunch today. Whatever it is that you need, don't try to, I know so many people who just force themselves through. Force yourself, stuff it down, keep going. That's not being compassionate to yourself. And so many times we think, well, it's being compassionate to the other person. You can't really be compassionate for the other person if you're not compassionate to yourself. It's just, it's going to blow up eventually. It's going to, um, it's going to come back to bite you. So put yourself first. This is one of those times where you really do need to put yourself first and take care of yourself.
Mhm. So yeah, I mean, this person said, "Okay, good point. I napped yesterday and today caught myself chastising myself." And again, whatever you need, it's okay. And we've learned that it's not. And so
Right.
now we have to retrain ourselves and relearn that trusting our bodies and trusting what we need is really important. We've just forgotten how to do that.
I just
Do we
had
have
someone
a
tell
commercial
me,
interlude?
yes, commercial interlude. We focus so much on, what we're supposed to be doing, and how we're supposed to be feeling, and all of these things are what is keeping humanity as a whole in this cycle of, we're angry, okay, we're not, we're angry again, okay, we're not, now we're just upset, now we're angry again. And it's a vicious circle that we put ourselves in.
Mhm.
And they're saying everyone needs a nap. Humanity as a whole needs a nap. Is it something that you're not taking care of your body? We spend so much time growing spiritually these days,
Mhm.
talking about, compassion and self-love and self-care and all of these things, but we're not doing it. So many people are concentrating on trying to spend time with the gods instead of trying to listen to their own body. And if you're not eating properly, you're not taking care of yourself. If you're not drinking enough water, you're not taking care of yourself. All of those things, drinking too much, eating too much junk stuff, all of those things will eventually make us angry,
Mhm.
and we won't feel well. And all of a sudden, it's everybody else's fault. It's what's going on in Ukraine. It's what's leaking out to the news. It's what some politician did or said. And what it is it's us.
Mhm.
It's each and every one of us. So spend less time trying to ascend and more time listening to your body. We're in these bodies for a reason, even if we don't like it very much. We're here. And
Mhm.
we really, all of us, need to learn to listen to your body, because just like the universe is always talking to you, so is your body. And if you're
Can
one of
you
those
really
people,
can you
you're on a
try
soapbox. What?
can you really try and ascend? It's more a doing practice. It's not something you can really try. It's by
Right,
that being in the present moment and doing things and looking at what you need to. Ascension happens along the way. It's not
right.
something you can really make happen.
But that's what they're saying. People are spending too much time doing, and we all need to take a giant step back, and take care of ourselves.
One of our viewers said, "Now you all sound like therapists."
That wasn't coming from me, let me tell you. But it's it's true though. We
Mhm.
don't, you know. We I have a friend who is convinced that if she just buys one more essential oil or one more crystal or one more, bath salt, she's going to achieve enlightenment. And I'm like, really? And if that was that easy, that'd been me 50 years ago. It's not an easy process. And it does all start with being grounded in our bodies and taking care of our bodies.
Mhm.
And they're saying, even if you don't like it, I spend as
A
much
lot of times
time
we
on
don't.
it, you know, it just interesting.
What else did they have to say?
No, they're just, he's harping on taking care of your bodies and listening to your own body and staying grounded,
Mhm.
because people on a spiritual path tend to float up into the ethers. And I know I do it. I just attach myself to a long tether and go wherever. But that's a lot of what is at the root of everything humanity is going through right now. And that's they're emphasizing that if every single person had compassion for themselves
Mhm.
and did what their bodies need, everyone would feel better and it would be a much happier place to be right now.
Hmm.
So
That therapist part of us does come out every now and then. You can't help it. So
sorry.
so ingrained as to who I am. So yeah, just interesting stuff happening in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I think the thing is, take it all with a grain of salt, and don't let yourself get overwhelmed. If the ringing in your ears starts to really, really bother you, tell them to stop or tell them to turn down the noise or choose a different tone. Um, but
So
people forget you can
mhm.
talk to them, you can communicate.
So here's one for you because okay, so as I announced at the beginning of the show, the floodgates are open. Hence, we've had two commercial interludes already
Yes.
today. How do you handle it when you have an entire entourage behind you now who want to speak?
You know, I do my best to ignore them, but, like you just saw, I can't always. And
Mhm,
some are more insistent than others. Sometimes, if there's a topic that they feel can maybe wait for a while,
mhm.
then they'll step back. But you do have a large gathering behind you right now. And, um, you know, just do the best that you can. They understand we're human,
Mhm,
and they understand that, unlike them, we can only really listen to one voice at a time. When you're in other dimensions, you can hear a dozen at a time and make sense of the conversation. That is not the way this realm works. So, you
You
know,
know, I'm not very familiar other than, like, through the Kyle Gray's cards of Serapis Bay,
mhm.
but he's very chatty.
Yeah,
And, because we were talking about ascension, and he's all about ascension and helping us move through ascension. And the biggest thing he keeps saying is, and you alluded to this before, is that when you're doing all these things, the most important thing, and it sounds so trite, is to breathe.
yeah,
Because when we start traveling and we start going up, our breathing usually becomes more shallow
yeah,
because we're not really in our bodies. And that
right.
doesn't help us to integrate in. This is so interesting. I've never really thought about this before. So he's saying that it's really important to really focus on making sure you're getting enough oxygen.
Yes. Yeah. And taking that downtime to let things settle. It's
Mhm.
really important. Um, yeah.
Who else is in my entourage? I mean, they're all just kind of glommed together, but I'm sure as the night goes on, it's gonna be one
Oh, they'll be
interesting,
talking. They'll be talking.
gonna be one interesting night.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's happening more and more these days. It's
I
just
will say this just from experience, and maybe this will help other people, is when this used to happen to me, like when people tried to talk with me or through me, I used to get really, really nervous and I didn't want it to happen. So I think I used to block it a lot because, as one of our listeners pointed out, it can be really scary. And especially if you've had bad experiences with it or teachers who've taken advantage of you or whatever the case might be, it can be scary. There's a bird circling around in front of my window right now. Literally, this is the fourth time around. He looks like he's going to dive bomb my window. Um, so not sure which spirit that was, but
that's just St. Francis saying hi.
is to just take a breath. And if it does become overwhelming, you can say, as you said earlier, please slow down, or can you come back again tomorrow? I'll create some space where I'll sit down and, give you guys the opportunity. It doesn't, just because they're there, if you're too overwhelmed, just let them know. And they'll come back or they'll do it in a different way. And like for me today, the knowledge that I needed came through these 7 pictures that I created this morning. And I created the physical representation of it, but now I'm getting downloaded with the rest of the information around all of it. And so it's really interesting to me, like, how do you still function in the rest of your day when that happens? And it's really interesting when you have to work and you have to do other things. How do you learn to balance both?
Eh, With me, that varies day by day.
Mhm,
But always talk to them. Tell them, hey, today's really hectic. Can we do this tomorrow? And
mhm,
I have done that. And you may still see them around you. You may still feel them around you. But normally, you won't feel that goes away that quick.
mhm.
They just pull back. Um, but most of the time, they're still around you. They're just leaving you alone. Don't be surprised though if they're like, okay, how about now? How about because that happens to a lot of people. I've heard so many people with that. I did a recent ghost hunt, which
Mhm.
really wasn't a paranormal investigation. We knew we were trying to reach one particular person. And, she came through and became quite chatty. And the first thing she said was, I've been talking to these people for years. They do not listen. And this was her family. And none of them had realized that those little synchronicities that were happening was her trying to get their attention. They
Mhm.
were oblivious. And sometimes we do that with our guides too. We just go through and we don't pay attention. We shut down. We're just like, why is no one helping me? Well, because you're shut down and you can't hear them. So
I
that's
I
the flip side.
I have an example, which was the determining factor of when I decided to leave the hotel yesterday. When I looked down, between the garbage can and the end of the dresser, there was one shiny penny. And when my grandmother died, all I did was see pennies everywhere I went because it wasn't there earlier.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to go. She's like really urging me to leave quickly. And so, but when I saw that, first I started crying
Yeah.
because I haven't seen that in a while. And then I'm like, okay, I've got it. I'm out of here. And it's so you have to look because it wasn't there before.
you have to be willing to see the signs too, or to hear the signs. Sometimes those synchronicities scare people and they
Mhm,
can scare you into shutting down. Just, take a step back, breathe, and say, okay, this is the sign I asked for. I asked for this,
mhm,
and don't be shocked when it happens. You know about this. I took puppies to the vet and somebody I've never known, never seen before in my life. I had just the night before done a deep meditation and asking for a sign. What direction do I go in? What
uh-huh,
do I do with this farm? I am getting too old to farm it. And I walk into the veterinarian's office, and this woman, total stranger, looks at me and says, "You're Kellie Fitzgerald. When is your healing center going to open? Aren't you doing a healing center?" Uh, Apparently, yes, I am. It took me off guard completely. I'm sure I looked shocked because she kind of backed up and reapproached the subject. But that was the answer I asked for. I asked for a sign. That was my sign. Um, 10 years ago, it would have freaked me out.
mhm,
You just have to realize that if you're asking for something, you're going to get it. You'll get your sign. You have to be open to seeing it, and you
mhm.
have to move through that fear. And that was my issue. And I think it's a lot of people's issue is move through that fear. If you're asking for a sign, you will get it. You
Mhm.
just have to pay attention. You know, it may not be quite that shocking, but
Anything you want to wrap up with today?
I don't think so, unless anyone else has any questions.
We'll give you guys a couple minutes if you have any other questions. Now is the time to ask them. And boy, this just flew by today.
Yeah.
So, all right, no other questions right now. All right, thank you for watching us. Thank you for watching us in the replay. If you're watching the replay and you have things that let me try that in English. If you're watching the replay and there's things that you have questions about or want us to talk to, reach out to Kellie or myself. We're pretty easy to find, and we would be happy to include it into future
Yep.
podcasts. Take care, everybody. We'll see you guys all again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.